Just know that your loved ones truly did not suffer at the soul level. The soul detaches, disassociates from the human role, and feels no suffering. And as soon as they cross that veil, most of them are fully aware that, oh, I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm whole. My stepdaughter was 6 months pregnant. She was killed on active duty in North Carolina, struck by lightning. The catalyst for me was seeing her lifeless body in the coffin and realizing that's not Susan, but the Susan we know still exists. With no religious upbringing, with no spiritual background. I was a Navy commander. I didn't know that that was my soul talking to me. So there are things that every one of us knows at a soul level. Knowing she was there, I sat daily, every day, asking Susan to reveal herself and listening and watching for her. People can learn to connect with loved ones and guides and expand their consciousness. And we simply need to bring that to the surface and honor those nudges and go down the rabbit holes and explore and investigate and have the personal experiences ourselves. And I know to follow those nudges.
My guest today is Suzanne Giesmann, who is not only an evidential medium, but she is a spiritual teacher. And I know a lot of people who watch this channel because of the near-death experiences are in a state of loss and grieving because you have a loved one who has passed over to the other side. This is going to be a wonderful experience for you to listen to because Suzanne has lots of tips that are going to help you so much in your grieving process. So, Suzanne, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Laurie. I love your show and I love what you're doing for people. So it's an honor.
That means so much. I'm excited to finally get a chance to sit down and talk to you. And I think I want to lead with one of the things that people really grieve about is that they'll feel like there was something that they could have done to save a loved one. They agonize over how a loved one passed, especially if it was something that they would perceive as pain in a fire, in a car accident, in some type of a tragedy, a drowning. And so what I'd like to start with is, will you explain to people from all of the conversations you had had with spirits and your guide on the other side, why people should not suffer with those thoughts?
Because we are all souls and the soul is whole and complete. And as soon as the passage to the other side becomes a reality, it's in process, the soul detaches, disassociates from the human role and feels no suffering, even if the body automatically reacts. And some people may have heard their loved one yelling or being in pain and seen that, and that's very real. But I don't know if you're familiar with Nancy Rhines, a beautiful woman who's had a near-death experience, and she had both experiences at once of being dragged under a car on her bicycle and watching the whole thing. So just know that your loved ones truly did not suffer at the soul level, and as soon as they cross that veil, most of them are fully aware that, oh, I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm whole, here I am. It's human nature for us to worry about our loved ones, but the experiences I've had for sure have shown me that it doesn't have to be that way.
I love that. That is so comforting. And then about the part about somebody feeling like, if I would have, could have, should have done this differently, if I had been there, I could have saved them. Tell everybody what you've learned about that part.
There is so much in this life over which we have no control. We can manage things to a certain extent, but when you realize that there really is a greater source, a higher consciousness running the whole experience, we have to trust that things do happen for the greater good. What may seem like a tragedy to each person, in the end or in the bigger picture, often has a much deeper meaning. I started down this path because of my stepdaughter's death, and for our family it was one of those cases of, well, her husband didn't want her to deploy to Afghanistan with the Marines, and so she stayed back, and she was killed on active duty in North Carolina, struck by lightning. So what if she had gone to Afghanistan? And you go down those rabbit holes, but now we see that as a result of Susan's passing, I and my husband together have touched millions of lives with these messages of hope with this work, and we know that Susan is perfectly fine. So if we can catch ourselves doing that woulda, coulda, shoulda thing and realize that, yeah, that's the human way, but it's not the only way. There's a better way, and that is to shift to the higher perspective and look for what are the possible reasons this may have happened, and how can I honor my loved one's life now that they are across the veil?
I love that. And when hearing what hundreds of people who I have interviewed have said, that nobody dies before their time. To your point, if she had gone to Afghanistan, she probably would have died just a different way.
I know this is true. Yeah, it was an exit point, something the soul planned for the bigger picture.
Well, you just shared two massive gold nuggets to bring people comfort. This is just a taste of what people are going to get in this conversation, because I know you have so much more wisdom to share. So I'd love for you to talk about what happened, the catalyst for all of this with your stepdaughter's death back in what year? That was like
2006.
2006.
Yes. The catalyst for me was seeing her lifeless body in the coffin and seeing how drastically different it was from the Susan that we know. And realizing then and there, with no spiritual background, with no religious upbringing, with no metaphysical training, that's not Susan, but the Susan we know still exists. It was a knowing inside me, and I didn't know that that was my soul talking to me. So there are things that every one of us knows at a soul level, and we simply need to bring that to the surface and honor those nudges and go down the rabbit holes and explore and investigate and have the personal experiences ourselves to fulfill our purpose of shining our light more brightly. Susan's death helped me to do that. And it was that knowing and honoring that and following it by starting daily sitting in the silence to expand my consciousness.
So you were not a medium. You didn't have medium abilities before this happened, but you certainly went on a journey that heightened those abilities, which every medium I've ever talked to says that we all have. So will you explain to people that journey of getting to the place where you were able to really and truly hear spirit and knew that that's what you were hearing?
Sure. And not only was I not a medium, I was about as far opposite that as it could be. I was a Navy commander. I was a commanding officer of a shore unit. I was aide to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, as left brain as they come. But as I said, looking at Susan's body, I knew that I had to try to connect with her myself, knowing she was there. And so I sat daily, every day, asking Susan to reveal herself and listening and watching for her. Today I call that meditation, but truly it is simply a practice of setting the monkey mind aside and observing what comes up in the mind. And you wait with true confidence that what you're trying to achieve will happen. And from all the noise, suddenly arises exactly what you're trying to create, because you are creating that with consciousness. You you resonate with another soul, and here they are, and their voice or their presence stands out, and the soul goes, yes, you got it.
Can you take us back to that time when you were on the boat with your husband and you had that drool about Susan?
This was actually 2 days before she passed. We had sailed across the Atlantic Ocean. We're living aboard our sailboat. This in 2006. We didn't have the kinds of communications we have now. And I had a dream that Susan came up to me at a very crowded party, clear as day, and she looked at me and she said, "The baby and I are fine." And Susan was 6 months pregnant. We knew that. And we hadn't heard from her in a while. We had a system of getting email once a day over a single sideband radio, very cumbersome and awkward and slow. But we didn't hear from Susan the whole time we were crossing the Atlantic. And I woke up and I said to my husband, Ty, Susan visited me. We need to reach out to her and just make contact. And, I know now that was her soul just preparing us, letting us know the baby and I are fine no matter what, because that was when she was killed.
And so she was just on base And struck by lightning, is that what happened?
Yeah, she was reporting for duty, crossing the flight line at the hangar where she worked on helicopters, and uh, somebody yelled, "Hey, there's a storm coming, get in here." And they saw her be struck. And people responded right away. They did CPR till the ambulance came. They worked on her for 7 hours and couldn't save her or the baby. But ultimately, my very first reading with a medium, before I had any idea I would be a medium, brought her through with so much evidence I couldn't deny, including bringing with her a little baby boy. So it was life-changing, that first experience, and so now I dedicate all of my work in honor of Susan and try to bring healing to other people just like that medium brought to us.
I too have gone to mediums in the past to connect with my passed away loved one, and I can't explain enough how healing, how helpful it is when somebody brings through the personality of their loved one. So aside from Susan saying I'm fine and she bringing the baby through, what else did she share with you in that reading that you can share with us? Like what kinds of things brought you comfort in that reading?
Well, the bringing the baby through was really the real clincher of the whole session, because we didn't give the medium our name. She knew nothing about who we wanted to hear from. So to have her say right off the bat, there's a young woman here who appears to be in her 20s, and she describes Susan's personality to a T. Like you said, for me, capturing someone's essence is all important. She said she's in a brown uniform, and of course, Susan had a brown uniform as a Marine. And she described Susan twirling around in front of me, dancing and dancing, and that was very significant to several dreams I'd had after she passed about Susan dancing in front of me. And then she said, "This young woman has stepped in front of you," she said to my husband, "and she's calling you daddy." And then she described Susan crawling onto his lap and hanging on his neck exactly like she did the last time we saw him. Exactly. Even though she was 27 and a tough as nails Marine, she was daddy's little girl. And that medium saw her doing that in her mind's eye.
So you both, not just you, were it was also your husband, and had he been in a spiritual place before? Because I know you told me who you were. Was he like a believer of this stuff before? Did you were skeptical?
Yeah, I have a movie called Wolf's Message, and the first part of it establishes the credibility of the film and talks about my background. And my husband comes on film, and he said it wasn't until years after that reading that he even found out what a no, it was years after Susan passed that he found out what a medium is, and now he's married to one. He went with me to the reading because I asked him to. We joke that he learned to say what all good husbands say. "Yes, dear," right? But he was a Navy captain, a destroyer captain, much more by the book than even I am. But he was open-minded enough, and who could deny this woman saying these things that I shared with you and more when we had just met her minutes earlier. He was just like it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you, with your background, would have even sought out a medium. What made you decide to seek a medium?
6 weeks before Susan passed, we were sailing along the coast of Italy. There's a U.S. Navy base there. We stopped in, we're walking around the base, and there was a bookstore. And they had a used book table. And I grabbed a bunch of books because it was like fill a bag for $1, something like that. And one of the books was written by a medium named James Van Praagh, who is one of the most well-known mediums in the world today. And I knew very little bit about mediumship, but it sounded interesting. I was intrigued. It snagged me, and I now teach people about snags. They're ways that those in higher consciousness get your attention and push you to do or buy or read something that is helpful and will lead to something helpful in the future. So I read the book, but it's funny, Laurie, at the time, I thought it was ridiculous what I was reading. He was talking about people in the afterlife doing things like we do here. And so I didn't share that with my husband because I thought he would think I was crazy for reading something like that. But you see, it was planting seeds for me. It put the idea in my head that there really are people who may be able to talk to those who have passed. So when Susan passed, with that awareness, I went out and bought more books by mediums to take back to Europe, after the funeral and to learn more about this and see how it felt to me. And the more I read about it, I read really good information from people like Dr. Gary Schwartz, an afterlife researcher who did double-blind studies. And I said, all right, I need to get a reading with somebody as credible as the mediums in this book. And so today I train mediums, and to me, integrity and credibility and honesty and evidence are all important.
I 1,000,000% agree because, like you, when I lost my passed away loved one in 2012, I also went to Dr. Gary Schwartz's website and looked up people. And I since have met many different people. Alison Dubois was one of the ones. And I'm sure that you know about a lot of these different people. But I think when people are on a channel like this, a lot of them are waking up and they're starting to remember that they are powerful, that we are connected, that we are one. And these messages resonate, and they won't always be able to get a medium reading with somebody like you. So you can recommend things like the James Von Traag book, which I still have in my bookshelf, and talking about Dr. Gary Schwartz, who's out of the University of Arizona here in Tucson, near me where I live. What other books really captivated you, or when you're like, this was a really good one that helped me from the beginning of my spiritual awakening?
I had read books by George Anderson, which were filled with evidential readings. But, I would like to jump forward and say more important than mediumship is understanding who we really are, because that's what makes the connection possible. My last 3 books, 2 from Hay House and 1 from Sacred Stories Publishing, really help people go down this path in a credible way and have the personal experiences themselves. The one is called The Awakened Way, and that's what discussions like these that you do on your show lead people to, awakening. Another one is called Mediumship, and it's all about the why study mediumship, why learn about it, why practice it. And then the third one is Making the Afterlife Connection. It tells how I went from Navy commander, very rigid and by the book, to now just open to amazing adventures in consciousness with practices for how people can do that themselves.
Oh, that's super helpful. I actually interviewed George Anderson. He was one of the early mediums I too found, and I reached out and had him on my show a while back as well. Evidential mediumship is so important. So, explain a little bit more about what that means and why it's so important.
Yes. If I had gone with my husband to a medium who simply said, oh, there are beautiful beings around you and they shine their light so beautifully and they love you, I would have been terribly disappointed. My husband would have said, what was that all about? And we would not have found any comfort or healing in knowing that Susan is still with us. So in evidential mediumship, the evidence comes from facts that the medium couldn't possibly know about your loved one, couldn't find online about your loved one, and resonate in your heart. I tell all of my students and all of my clients that the test of a good session with a medium is when you leave and you say, not, well, I think that was them, but, oh my God, that was my loved one.
I just got goosebumps all over when you said that.
Yeah. Yeah. And my people I work with across the veil, they know I won't do this work unless most of my readings fit that test. And they do. I get so excited when I do readings because I know that this is changing people's lives. I know that it's providing healing, comfort, and serving those across the veil who are now saying, yes, now they know I'm here.
I'm curious, can you share a couple of things that had come up that you were just absolutely blown away? Like you didn't even want to say this out loud because it sounded so outrageous.
Oh, okay. But we're going to have to give the outrageous one to the side right now because what's in the forefront of my mind is a video that I'm releasing today with the permission of the person I did the reading for just yesterday.
Well, I'm going to really go all this in the show notes for people. So yes, it's
I release like you a short one every midweek and then a longer one on the weekends. But this was a reading I did for the director of our film, Wolf's Message, because I knew that yesterday was the date that his and his wife's son did cross the veil 4 years ago. And I brought through Dakota, who was hit and killed by a car in the past in a full-length reading for them, but I thought, let's just do a beautiful thing and connect with him. And when I normally do a reading, I get the kind of evidence that shows that their loved one is here and that I don't know them. How did they pass? What kind of work did they do? Capturing their essence and their personality. What messages do they have? But we had already done all that. I know Dakota. It's like a friend, even though we never met in person. So I had a feeling that he was going to talk about current events in his parents' life. And that's exactly what he did. I won't go into all of them that I put in the video here, but just for example, it was so funny. And this is a message for all of us, that all we have to do is think about our loved ones and they hear us, they tune in, they pay attention to us. They don't have to come from afar because they're simply operating at a different channel right here. And so Dakota said to his parents, I love that you talk to me all the time. And I love that you think about me all the time. I hear it. And it is a bit louder when you talk out loud. But Dad, you don't have to be that crazy person in the grocery store talking out loud to your son. And Jim started laughing, his dad, Jim, because just the day before, he's walking down the aisle in the grocery store, sees this rice pilaf that Dakota used to like, and said out loud, well, should I get this one, son? Said it out loud. So, it's just evidence that Dakota heard him. He's right there walking with his dad. And then another just really cool, can't make this stuff up, piece of evidence. I get the goosebumps when these things happen. Dakota showed me absolutely somebody playing pool. I knew what he was showing me. So I silently said to him, who's playing? And he said, my best friend, Nolan. And I said to Jim and Gloria, Dakota was watching Nolan play pool recently. And they shrugged their shoulders because they knew Nolan doesn't have a pool table. And I said, I know what he's showing me. You check with him. So they reached out to Nolan, who said, 3 days ago, we rented an Airbnb, some friends. It had a pool table. We played all night long, and we felt the presence there with us.
And there's no way you could have known that.
That Jim and Gloria didn't even know it. So we're not reading people's minds. This is the spirit who I feel, I recognize him. He's a character. He's funny. And he just stepped right into awareness when we said, okay, let's go. Let's connect with your parents.
Let's go back to something you said that I think is super, super important. And that is that our loved ones on the other side hear our thoughts to them. They hear everything that we say. And I think that this is so comforting for the ones who couldn't be there when the loved one passed away. And they feel like they didn't get to say what they needed to say, or maybe there was a distance or a chasm in the relationship. And so will you talk about what spirits on the other side have shared with you about how they receive messages from us?
I will. And it's exactly what you said. All of those circumstances are healed through telepathic communication. And we don't even have to put into words what we want to say. We just can send it from our heart and know what we're trying to convey. And the reason I know we don't have to put it into words is just the other day I did a reading for a woman whose father came through very clearly, showed me all those kinds of things I said before about him that she said, yeah, that's my dad. But the thing is, her father never spoke English. He was Korean. And it didn't matter that I didn't speak Korean. He communicated with me by transmitting consciousness. It's an energy, a vibration. Every thought carries a unique vibration. That energy entered my field. My brain translated it into English. I heard his words as if he were speaking in English, and I transferred that to her. It's fascinating. Same with pets, right? I have this beloved little black and tan dachshund that passed. The next day, she was here with me, talking to me in full sentences. And I thought, why did I never try this while she was here? And she conveyed to me a message that was so healing. But it's all really heart-to-heart communication.
Can you share what your dog communicated to you?
Oh, well, we had to make that decision to help her with euthanasia because she was suffering from a brain tumor that infiltrated her mouth. It was pretty bad, but our wonderful friend in my movie Wolf's Message, his Wolf's stepmother is Beth. She is a veterinarian. She was in the film, and Beth did in-home euthanasia. And she said to us, Gretchen will let you know when it's time to pass. You'll just know. She'll stand and put her head against the wall and lean into it, and you'll know that's her sign. And I'd never heard that before, and I don't know why she said it about Gretchen. I've never heard her say it about other pets. But it was Christmas Eve, and Gretchen was on the bed with me, and we knew it was getting close. She stood on my lap, and she looked at me. I didn't need communication for her to know she was saying, "I'm ready." It was so awful. I called my husband, I said, "Honey, she is ready." And he cried and he said, "But I'm not on Christmas." So I just sat with them. I said, "Okay, we got to honor both of them." And I said to my little girl, if you can wait, you wait. And the next day was Christmas morning. She seemed okay, but not really. We went off to a neighborhood brunch. And in the middle of the brunch, I got this feeling, go home now. And I know to follow those nudges. I said, "I have to leave." I said to my husband, I'll be in touch with you. I have to go right now." I walked in the front door, and there she was, leaning against the wall with her head against the wall. I called my husband. I said, "We got the sign. We got to call Beth, who said I'll come anytime." He said, "Absolutely. We are not going to make her suffer." My husband, he was with me. We called Beth, and she came from afar on Christmas Day. And I will tell you before I tell you what the message was. The moment the medicine took effect, I felt her little soul whoosh out of her body and zip around me with this feeling of joy that made me smile and say, "Oh my God, she's right here." And she said, "I'm free, I'm free." And then she just ran around and then off she went, just like that. I couldn't be sad right away because the joy I felt from her release from that aching body, whew. So when she came to me, I think it was actually 2 days later because the joy lasted about 24 hours and then the grief hit. And I'm in meditation, really wanting off the planet because I missed her so much, even though I know her soul is fine. She comes up to me and she said, in English, the way my brain translated it, "You didn't wait too long, Mommy. I gave you the sign." Now, consciously, yeah, I could have thought that, but I wasn't thinking it in my grief. I felt her presence, and it was exactly what I needed to hear right then and there. And that's what I tell people. Our human mind goes to, I'm making that up, when you sense your loved one, human or domestic animal, when you sense them, you know in your heart it's them. And what is the message that you get? Is it healing? Is it helpful? Honor that.
I am so glad you shared it. You made me cry. I lost my girl, my Lima Reiner. I had her. She was almost 16. We hiked over 1,000 miles a year together.
Oh,
And it was so hard because I work from home and do my YouTube channel from home. And so she was just a massive part of my life. And here during the loss of my loved one and during my kids leaving for school, it was almost a more difficult death for me than some people that have been important to me because she was such a big part of my life. And I think you sharing this is so, so incredibly helpful for people, especially when we have to make the decision to euthanize. We always are second guessing ourselves. And so I'm glad that you talked about this and shared it in the detail that you did because it's not always easy. But it also teared up when you said that her soul left her body. And then you said that the grief hit. So the thing that I want to say, and I think I'd love for you to comment on, is that even though we're spiritual and we understand we're one entity having this experience, we still is very real when it happens. The losses are very real. I gained 7 pounds. I ate a chocolate rabbit almost every single day for weeks because doggone it, Easter was so late. We're this year, and I had so much chocolate rabbit season. It was terrible, but we've got to still cope with the grief. It doesn't matter how spiritual you are and how much you know that these things are true and that your dog is better on the other side and not suffering anymore. It still hurts our hearts to have that loss of a person, of an animal. So I'd love for you to speak to that a little bit.
And that's the beauty of awakening and self-realization is you realize you are both human and a soul. And you as a soul came here for the full experience. And sometimes, to be blunt, it sucks. It is awful to feel that grief. And yet the soul feels it all and then eventually transmutes that by having gone to those depths. You can also now feel the great joy, and then in the middle you feel this ongoing joy that has no opposite. That's the residual effect. So uh, we we come here for the ups and the downs, and we become all the stronger for those downs.
So beautifully put. Let's talk about signs and synchronicities. My life in the last since 2012 to now is so completely different than it was before 2012 when I lost my passed away loved one. My passed away loved one is amazingly efficient and excellent at sending these signs and synchronicities, but not just one. He has managed to send multiples at the same time. Because I'm so left brain, like I came up in corporate job, IBM, Hewlett Packard, selling security software. Like I have this massive creative side and spiritual side, but I also am a very much a prove it to me. And so he would really send me one sign without it being multiple to tie together. So I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about signs and synchronicities and why they are real and how people can kind of maybe open themselves up to be able to see them more. Because I think at the core, that's why people watch these videos. When they've lost someone, they want to believe that these signs are real and they want to know how to see them if they're not seeing them right now.
It starts with being open, and because you're open, you get more. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's co-creating with consciousness. You work together. They tried to give us signs, and often people, well, right away oh, that's not a sign, it's my imagination. That dampens the energy, shuts you off to seeing what truly is a sign. So there's a timeliness to them, a wow that can't be denied, and there's that knowing in the heart. And it's unusual. So our Susan sent us multiple signs from butterflies. And to this day, when we see butterflies, we think of Susan, but we don't mistake them for actual signs. You could not deny that Ty and I were hiking down a trail in Croatia a week after her funeral. We'd gone back to our boat, which was our home, not really wanting to do anything or be anywhere. But we went for a hike. And the whole time I'm saying, Susan, just reveal yourself to me, because I had that knowing, right, that she still exists. And I, in my naivete at that time, thought that I might see a wispy spirit appear on the trail. And after a while, thought, I'm really foolish. This is crazy. And all of a sudden, this yellow butterfly catches my eye, comes from way off to the left, flew straight at me, bounced into my heart, flew around me in a circle, went 50 yards straight down the trail to my husband, hit him in the heart after flying around him in a complete circle, and then flew away. There's the goosebumps again. In that moment, there was no denying it. That was the culmination of several other experiences with butterflies, like being at a marina in Croatia. Every other boat sitting there, nothing around it. Our boat, a swarm of butterflies right over it. And then being out on the Adriatic Sea, sailing south from Croatia, miles out in the water, and a butterfly followed us for 2 days until my husband said, "Have you noticed that yellow butterfly following us?" And I was reading a book by George Anderson at the time, one of the books I brought back with me, right? And I said, "I did see it. It's kind of strange to see a butterfly at sea." And he goes, "Yeah, I think so too." And I would go back to reading the very next paragraph, and this is the timing that I'm talking about, is George Anderson saying, those in spirit often send you signs that can't be dismissed, like a butterfly in December. And I looked at my husband and said, listen to this. I read it to him and I said, or on the Adriatic Sea. And just as I read it, that butterfly that had been trailing us flew up to the cockpit, flew between the two of us, and went away.
That is exactly what I mean. I keep telling you how many times I've read something and a song happens.
Yes.
That's very specific. I was reading one time a book by Steely Dan, and he was talking about the whole song. And then I got in the car, turned on the radio, and as soon as my car, it played that song. So there's just mere mistakingness when they happen that way. And again, it's not even so much that you tell other people and they believe it. It's about how you feel in your heart about it.
That's right.
Let's also talk about that a minute, because I think that there's so many people who are skeptical, and it's okay. Skeptical is fine. Everybody's on their path. They receive and believe things when it's time for them to be open to those. But I think that there are a lot of people who get signs and then they become afraid to share them, but feel like they're going to be shot down.
So don't share it. Why do we have to share it and have people shoot us down? Know in your heart, honor your heart, and you'll know when to share because you want to share the joy. But don't share it with your loved one who's already told you that the afterlife isn't real. But I would like to, if you don't mind, go back to what you said about having this song coincidence, then turning on the radio and there it is.
Yes.
I've learned from so many spirits that what happens is they impress in your mind. They bring into your conscious awareness a thought. Turn on the radio now, knowing it's playing. And then you turn it on. So we are impressed by thoughts so often by our loved ones, and that's how they make some of those signs happen. Like, look at the clock right now, and you look close to this.
Or whatever this time. Yeah.
What made you turn and look? It's because you're connected by consciousness with your loved ones and with the one mind. And when you start honoring the web of consciousness, it shows up more and more in your life.
All right, I want to share a series of signs that I got over 4 years with you. And I would love for you to tell me what you think, how you think a spirit could do this. This is a combination of electronics and communication. I know you don't probably know very much about me. We're not doing a reading. So I'll just tell you, my passed away loved one was the lead guitarist of the band Starship. Okay.
Oh, cool.
So the last time I saw him alive, he did what they call a singer show, where they had the lead singer from the band Toto come and play 4 songs with them. So they played 4 Toto songs. Over a series of 4 years on XM radio, specifically Yacht Rock Radio, the radio will be playing and it would be Hall & Oates, Rich Girl, and the music would end. The screen would freeze and it would still say Hall & Oates. And then Toto's Hold the Line would play the entire song. The song would end, the screen would update and go to a commercial, go to another song, whatever it was. I videotaped it every time it happened. It happened in my car. It happened in rental cars. I have at least 12 witnesses to this. I have a spreadsheet. This happened 99 times. And right before it was going to happen 100 times, XM Radio's Yacht Rock started playing Hold the Line on that station for real. Previously, they only played it on 70s on 7 and Classic Rewind. But the moment that it began playing for real on that station, it never happened again. But what was cool about it is I could go to their app and I could pull up the playlist of what Yacht Rock was playing. It never showed Hold the Line. I could call friends and say, turn that radio station on, and it didn't play for them. It only played for me. He did this 99 times over that time period. And I share that because it's so big for me.
Yeah.
There's nobody who can take any of that away from me. I have evidential information and evidence that it wasn't played on that station, videos of it happening, witnesses of it happening, and every time somebody witnessed it, they were blown away. So I'd love for you to speak to this, Suzanne, because I've actually never asked, I've only asked a person in media who I've spoken to, but I'd love to share what your thoughts about that are.
It's very clear to me from the experiences over and over that I've had and from talking to higher beings and channeling them. This world is not solid. This world is malleable. It's made of the experiences of consciousness. So each of one of us is having an individual experience in consciousness, just like our dreams are very real to us. They're experiences in consciousness. And when we're lucid, when we dream, we can change things to a certain point. But this life that, like you and I talking right now, this is part of a shared experience. So it's a little more challenging to change reality in a shared experience. Your loved one across the veil is directly connected with you. He was allowed to change your experiences so you could have those enough experiences that you are so convinced it's real, you go on to help others as a result of that to know this is real. Our shared reality, we don't get big miracles too often because then the game would be up. We'd all realize this world is not so solid. But as we come to know that individually by experiences we can't deny, I call them NOEs instead of NDEs, no other explanation moments, you realize it's malleable. Consciousness is creating a virtual reality here. Very real, but not solid. And when higher consciousness knows it can create healing and growth through certain experiences, they play with the rule set a little bit.
This is the bird nugget of what I meant when I told people from the beginning that we were bringing all this wisdom in, because usually if I ask somebody that question, they start talking about how easy it is for the spirits on the other side because they have a high vibration to manipulate electronics. But I love that you went deeper and you went into the constraint of really, we are living in the matrix. When Neo realized that he had the power to manipulate things, that's really, we're on the cusp of this right now. We're starting to communicate telepathically. I know that for a lot of animals, dogs, and I don't know about cats, but dogs I know are able to communicate with owners telepathically. Horses I know have had that ability. Now we've got these autistic, non-speaking, non-verbal kids who are proving evidentially that they're communicating telepathically with parents, with other kids in the same situation they are across the world. And you're right. If we look at quantum physics, nothing is solid. When I look at an atom, it's all 99.9% empty space. So I so love that you went with that explanation as to why this is happening, because it makes it more real for people who are listening.
Oh, yes. I mean, every reading I do, I ask the spirits to show me how they passed. And many times they manipulate my physical body by giving me the symptoms they experience. I feel that in my body. And I like to picture those across the veil saying, well, let's see. I passed from a heart attack, so if we change the frequency this way, she will experience her heart palpitating, but it's really not palpitating. It's just the experience of that. It's not dangerous to her. We wouldn't do it. And so then, oh, they'll give me a sharp pain in the kidney, and I'll literally go, ow, because it feels like it hurts. But I know that it really isn't an actual pain. One time I had a cold that was so bad I couldn't smell if somebody walked in the room carrying a pizza. I couldn't have smelled the pizza. But in that reading, I smelled cigar smoke as clear as if somebody had walked in the room. And this man in spirit smoked a cigar. But it was so real. And yet, in this reality, I could not have smelled it. So the brain tricks us into saying this is real and that isn't. But in consciousness, everything is real. It's an experience. Is it a shared reality? Then we believe it. Believe your experiences and act on them if they're helpful and healing.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you just shared that about that cigar, because I want to share something that happened to me similarly with a smell that was just unmistakable with my passed away loved one. My passed away loved one was a cigarette smoker. Okay, hated it. Never smoked a day in my life. Sorry for the people who do smoke, but it's just, if you're not used to it, the smell is overwhelming, and I've never had to be around it as an adult because everything became non-smoking. So the day that I received the hard copy of the book that I wrote about our story called Signs Surround You, Love Never Dies, the first part is of the story, our love story, and the second part was the signs I received in the first 2 years after he died and while writing the book. My son happened to be at home, and we got the box. We opened it together because he had helped me with the designing the cover. I knew what I wanted to do it, and he put it together, and we opened it up. And then I started to walk away, and he's like, Mom, were you around cigarettes? And I was like, no, I haven't been around any cigarettes at all. And he's like, well, you smell like smoke. And he came over to me and he's sniffing in like, it's not me, it's Mark. He knows that the book is, he came back to dream and told me he was most proud of our story. And he helped me write this book. Like, there's a lot of it was dictated to me, downloaded to me. And so I know he didn't believe me. He's still trying to smell me, seeing if I smell like smoke. And then later on, we drove separately to my parents, and I had that box of the books that he took out into the car. And he said, as soon as he got in the car, he smelled the cigarette smoke again. And he knew this time it wasn't me. And he knew that the box itself had not smelled in the house. And so he was absolutely convinced that Mark was around here at school.
All Mark had to do was create the frequency of cigarette smoke. And the brain interprets that as real smoke. It is real because it's a frequency. I've had things move in front of me, like an illusion. They literally move. Two very clear examples. One of them I share in Wolf's Message, the documentary. And in each instance, it directly led to an important connection with somebody across the veil. So did the thing really move? Would somebody else standing next to me have seen it move? Maybe, if it would have helped both of us. But just like somebody else didn't hear the song you were listening to because they didn't need to. It's whatever will serve the greatest good.
Will you share the very first sign that Susan sent you with the TV?
Oh, sure. That was another one with the George Anderson book that I couldn't deny. I didn't know anything about signs or synchronicities. And Ty and I were heading back to the boat in Europe, in Croatia. We had to stop in Italy halfway. And it wasn't more than halfway, but for a rest. And we were in our hotel room and sitting on the balcony, just being quiet and trying to process our grief. So I'm reading this book about the afterlife, stories of mediumship with George Anderson. And suddenly I heard voices. I looked over the balcony down in the garden. There's nobody there. I said, do you hear somebody talking? He said, yeah. And I got up and I went into the hotel room. And the TV, which we had not turned on at all, the remote had not been touched, was on and playing. And I said, Tag, did you touch this TV? He said, no. I said, have you ever had a TV come on by itself? He said, never. And I couldn't explain that. And then I go back to reading George's book, just like with the butterfly thing. The very next paragraph said, those in spirit often let you know they're around by manipulating electronic devices. The timing again, the inexplicable TV going on. I even asked the manager, does this ever happen? And he said, we've never heard of that. Good one, Susan.
Well, I'll share one also, because I always feel like when I share my signs, they confirm other people's signs. And when people share their signs, they confirm mine too.
Yes.
So when I was writing my book, I had a business trip in Las Vegas. And the thing I like most about Las Vegas is hiking there. So there's a place called Red Rock State Park, and I went on this beautiful hike. It's really hard hike. Turtle Peak, it's the highest point. And when I was out there, I was writing the end of the book, and all of a sudden I got a download, and I have this ending of the last paragraph that I needed in the chapter, and it came into my mind, and I have to walk about 2 miles with this in my mind, and I keep on thinking, I'm going to forget it. I've got to get back to the car before it leaves me. And I got in the car, and it was super hot. I turned the air conditioning on, and I moved the seat. I'm in a rental car. I moved the seat all the way back to get to back up to be able to write on this. And the car that I had XM radio programmed in it, which doesn't always happen in a rental car because it's either a brand new car that has to have it, and Classic Rewind was playing. And I thought to myself, I should switch the channel to the bridge, but I'm trying to write out this paragraph for the book, and I didn't do it. And the next thing you know, the bridge switched over and the song Miracles by Jefferson Starship was playing. Miracles is my all-time favorite song. It is the entire reason that I even met Mark. And it was the biggest sign for me as I'm writing this last chapter of the book as a download and recording it, that I know I did not touch that radio, and it switched to that channel after I had the thought and didn't do it myself.
Well, you met Mark so that you'd be able to share miracles with the world. So.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. But tell everybody a little bit more about Ruth's message that was documentary that you're doing, because I want people to understand what it is and how they're going to be able to find it.
Well, they can find it at wolfsmessage.com. It's won 7 awards at film festivals so far, I think.
How exciting. What
Yes,
made you decide to do this?
Had to do it. I knew when I wrote the book Wolf's Message that it would one day be a movie, and the whole story of how the director and I came together through his son Dakota, who I talked about earlier, is all told at wolfsmessage.com. Great interviews and stories there. But it had to be told because Wolf is a young man who was struck and killed by lightning like my stepdaughter. But Wolf left absolute proof that we are souls. He left proof that he knew at a soul level, and it came through the conscious level, that he was going to be killed by lightning, that it would happen. He knew when it would happen, where it would happen, and what would happen afterwards. He left it in a drawing and a poem, and all of that is shared in the video. I just took it on tour around the country with my husband for a full U.S. country tour, 25 cities. We showed it in, 4,500 people saw it with me, and there's not a single person could watch it and not say, wow, over and over and over again. Because you watch it and it's filled with NOEs, no other explanation moments. I'll just give you one of them. He never, well, a couple, okay. He never cleaned his apartment or made his bed, but the last time he left his apartment, he left it clean, made the bed, and set up one of his rooms with this poem that showed what was going to happen, tacked to the wall, put a chair in the middle of the room, like, look at this poem on the wall. And across the wall from that poem, he cut out the front of his favorite T-shirt that he had only worn a couple of days before, tacked it to the wall, and it had on the front of it a lightning bolt.
Oh my gosh, you're right. NOE, no other explanation.
No. And then he came back to me through a reading and through several drop-in visits with messages for his parents that were really meant for all of us. Wolf's message is not just, hey, we're souls and we know certain things that break through to the surface. His main message became the awakened way teaching that I share in that book, that we're also souls. We're not only human. And this big web, that's what we're part of. And that love is what connects us all. Love is the connection. So Wolf came back to make sure we all get it. Hey, if I knew these things, what does that mean for all of us? We're part of a greater reality. We're all connected. We're here to shine our light and our love on each other. Get with it, people.
I know, wake up. This is what this channel is all about, helping people to understand that. I think the collective is definitely waking up. You also have a very special meditation event that's coming up in December. So these videos live in perpetuity. So for the people who are listening, we are recording this at the end of November of 2025. And this is an event that's going to happen in December of 2025. So will you explain what's coming?
Yes, right on the winter solstice, December 21st, is World Meditation Day. It was actually recognized by the United Nations last year. So it's a recognized moment when all of us can acknowledge why meditation is important. To me, it's so much more than just finding peace and tranquility. For me, it's the key to coming to know who we are as souls, to experiencing for yourself what we're talking about here today, experiencing that you're so much more than this body through expanded states of consciousness. So I'm having an event December 21st at noon Eastern time, online, live, on my YouTube channel. You can find information on my homepage at SuzanneGiesmann.com. But I'm going to talk about some of the benefits of meditation that often go unknown, such as raising your happiness set point, but really opening up to connecting with loved ones who have passed and guides. I'm bringing in happiness expert Marcy Scheimoff for a brief discussion. And then I'm going to call in my guides, and we're going to lead a guided meditation where everybody can hope to make a connection with a guide or a loved one and really experience themselves beyond what we're used to. So it's going to say an hour long.
Yeah, I was going to say, taking the time and the date so everybody can put it on their calendar.
Yeah, December 21st, 2025. Just go to SuzanneGiesmann.com and scroll down to World Meditation Day and click there if you want the link, or you can just go to my YouTube channel on that date at noon Eastern, wherever you are. And it's free, no strings attached whatsoever. You can sign up to be notified so you get the exact link and don't have to fumble around at the time. But it's It's just honoring the connection we have, and the more people get together at one time to meditate, we know that it affects our whole world. So it's not just a selfish thing. It's, hey, I'm going to have a great event. We're going to get a healing transmission from my guides. We've had some healing miracles when I lead guided meditations. Literally, people healed from illnesses and pain. But even if that doesn't happen, to experience yourself as the soul that we are, what a gift that is.
Will you share one of the healing experiences that happened? I'd love to hear that.
I've led 3 cruises, Awaken Way cruises so far. What a great way to get away and connect with kindred spirits, have workshops, and enjoy a cruise. And on the last one I led, we had a gentleman, 80 years old, had been diagnosed with a terminal lung disease, brought along oxygen, his oxygen tank, had to take the elevator everywhere he went. He came because his wife asked him to come along. He's a retired attorney, Harvard, Yale, Wharton School of Business, as by the book as they come. He promised his wife he'd go to 2 sessions. In the very first session, I led a meditation. He thought he fell asleep. He woke up and he said, "What just happened?" She said, "Well, she led a meditation." He walked out of the place and up the steps without realizing that he wasn't out of breath. And over the next few days, he realized he was forgetting to use his oxygen machine. He didn't want to tell anybody something happened. He told his wife something happened in that meditation. He waited till he got home, no longer needed his oxygen machine, waited and went to his doctor. 2 months later, had the full barrage of experience of lung tests. And the doctor says, "I don't know what happened, but your lungs are functioning at normal levels."
Wow. Did you ever ask if she had asked for some type of a healing or something in that meditation?
I didn't ask that, but I know that she didn't. I know that healing takes place when it serves a greater purpose. And boy, that does, because he came online and gave a testimonial, and I put it on a video on YouTube because he wanted people to know he had no expectations. He had no beliefs. And just being in that energy, the group and my guides, and being open enough to say, "Hey, I'll show up." He received a profound physical healing. But it can happen at every level, as you know, emotional, spiritual, mental.
Well, this is wonderful. I would imagine that people who are watching want to connect with you. And you're not only a medium, but I also mentioned when I introduced you that you are a spiritual teacher. So tell people what you offer and how they can work with and find you.
Well, I'm happy that we're in the midst of redoing my website. It'll be done in January because there's so much information on my website that people often don't find it all. We have gifts of meditation, but I have multiple courses where people can learn to connect with loved ones and guides and expand their consciousness. Some of the free gifts are, in fact, if you sign up to be notified about World Meditation Day, we have a free ebook, Mastering Meditation. So I have courses about connecting and realizing who you are. Why do you want to? Because it brings such peace and love and joy. I have a weekly podcast. We have a free app called Awaken Way, where we get daily downloads from Spirit just to stay inspired and remember who you are instead of getting drawn into the drama all the time. So my website is really full of lots of books and binaural beats meditations. It's a treasury, really.
Oh, this is wonderful. Suzanne, I am so grateful that I get to have a conversation with somebody like you. And I just want to thank you so much for all of the work that you are doing, for all the content that you put out to help break up the collective. It is so needed right now.
Well, thank you. It's a calling just like yours is. We came here to go through some pain, but from that pain, like my stepdaughter had on her hip, a phoenix rising from the ashes, right? Every one of us goes through pain, and if we can turn it into something that's of service, what a joy that is. So thank you for allowing me to share.
Oh, of course. And of course, this show is absolutely nothing without all of you who tune in to watch, to listen, and to share these with somebody who needs to hear it. So thank you, everybody, for watching.
Do you believe that love never dies and you want to hear stories that prove it? Well, hit the subscribe button. You belong here.